Sarah Dusek is an entrepreneur, venture capitalist, author, and hotelier who believes that business can be a force for good. In 2009, she founded Under Canvas, the leading upscale outdoor glamping company, which she sold in 2018 for over $100 million. She then launched Enigma Ventures, investing $10 million in women-led startups. Her book, Thinking Bigger, a pitch deck formula for women who want to change the world, shares the building blocks for scaling any business. It's an incredible resource for anyone who is required to influence and sell, which is a majority of our listeners. And today, as co-founder and CEO of Few and Far, Sarah is taking hospitality to new heights with the world's first aerial safari at Few and Far Luvhondo in Africa, where extraordinary travel and a net positive impact on the planet can coexist. I am thrilled to have her on the show. Our listeners are going to leave so inspired from this interview. Sarah, welcome to Prospecting on Purpose.
Thank you so much. So nice to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. Every time we speak, I feel more inspired and I feel more equipped to go tackle the world. So I'm excited to leave our listeners with that same energy. Before we get into our questioning, I'd love to learn, just give us a little bit of an overview of your entrepreneurial journey, because you've had quite the story.
I have had quite the journey, and I didn't start out my career as an entrepreneur. I consider myself an accidental entrepreneur because I started my working life working for NGOs. Right out of college, I went to work for an aid agency in Africa. I went to Zimbabwe and then spent the next 8 years working for various different agencies in the nonprofit world. And at the time, I would still consider myself a save the world person, and I was most definitely a save the world person in my early 20s. And I used to think about capital as being this sort of dark side of the universe. Like everything that's wrong with the world is because we're trying to make money. And, we skip forward just a little bit in my lifetime and I realized, well, there's quite a lot of wrong with aid agencies too, right? The way we move the world forward and the way we drive change and make things better doesn't have to be through a nonprofit vehicle. And what I realized was that actually nonprofits were not really designed for the vehicle itself, is not really designed for problem solving, really designed for bandaging and propping up, if you like. But the vehicle that really is designed for problem solving is really a business. Every business that exists has a very specific problem that they're trying to solve for and a scenario that they are trying to create a solution, a financially sustainable solution to solve that specific problem. And I realized that actually business could be an enormous vehicle for doing good in the world, for solving some of our biggest world systemic problems. Even, if we take a micro problem within a bigger, larger problem and use business to solve it. So I am an accidental entrepreneur. I realized that if business could be a vehicle for driving change and moving the world forward, that I needed to learn something about business. So I stepped into the business arena almost 20 years ago now. In fact, 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. And have had a myriad of failures and successes along the way. And all of our endeavors have attempted to try and solve some problem that I personally care about.
I think that's what really resonates with you to me, is this concept of wealth and capital doesn't have to be bad, and the fact that you can use business as the vehicle to solve problems. Because when I think about politics, for example, I wish we could get some business people into political roles, but they're solving different problems. And I just think that it's such a refreshing take on something that I completely agree with you. And so I'm excited to get into it in a little bit more detail. With all of your business ventures, you've had to go out and raise capital. You've had to go out and sell yourself. And with your background in nonprofit, obviously, I don't want to assume you don't come from a sales background, but it doesn't seem like that was part of the mix at the beginning.
No, it definitely wasn't. And I think culturally too, I am originally British. I'm now a naturalized and proud American, but I am originally British, and culturally, this whole concept of selling yourself and selling anything was also slightly weird and uncomfortable. I think Americans innately have a stronger culture around sales than us Europeans do. But one of the things I have learned along the way is actually the best version of selling is a very authentic, very natural version. And I have learned in my own journey that there was absolutely no point trying to be something I am not, but actually finding my way to getting comfortable with promoting the things that I care about and passionate about, and the ways in which I'm trying to move the world forward and I'm trying to move my business forward, is the most natural extension of a version of selling. That's what that looks like to me. It just looks like me being my authentic self and caring. And the reality is, when you are super passionate about something and you really, really care about it, it's hard not to sell it.
Right. It
Um,
shines through,
it
and
just
it's
is a
not just
natural
charming.
extension of who you are. Yeah, it's not weird in any way, because it's just, I love this. I love this, and I want you to love this. And this is really great. And here's what I've discovered about this. And here's why I'm passionate about it. And the reality is, so many of us are passionate about so many weird and wonderful things, right? We each have our things that make us light up and get us excited. And I think that's where we find our sweet spots. And we find and when we do business with people who are genuinely passionate and excited and authentic about their passion, it feels real, it doesn't feel fake. You want to buy from those people, right? You want to do
Right.
business with those people. It's a natural phenomenon. And that for me has been sort of one of my sort of strongest learnings, I think, sort of crossing over from a non-profit world into a business world, because you don't have to be anything other than who you are, to do a good job of giving other people things that they actually will want and need.
I mean, everything you said was just spot on. And in my sales workshops, we really try to pull out like our authentic selves, because I found that when I am my authentic self to others, it gives them permission to be their authentic selves to me. And
Yes.
now all of a sudden there's this
You can build
connection
on
point.
that.
Yeah, it's like that's where you find the connection. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of times people just want to skip to the end and show the pitch and get the money, and I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're pulling from an empty bank account. You have to find those connection points. And I
Yeah, and
love
and
that.
I think that's exactly right. The connection is really the magic that helps make a sale happen, right? You are so much more likely to have a sale if you have a point of connection that is maybe about something else. Like, it doesn't even have
Exactly.
to be about the thing that you're trying to sell. It's just, I have a wonderful friend who's become I call her a friend. She's become a friend over this last year, and we bonded over something ridiculous like having hip trouble because we sit in office all day long, right? And I had discovered an amazing company that created like these cushions to sit on that are really, really good for your hips.
Oh my gosh,
And
we're gonna have to send me the link, and I'll put it in the show notes.
they're amazing. Yeah, they're amazing. And we bonded over having like 50-year-old woman hip pain, like, and now we do all sorts of stuff together, on a variety of different levels. And that's how you move your own business forward. It's how you build your social network forward. It's how you build relationships, and it's just being interested in other people, and
Yeah.
recognizing our connections are very valuable to us.
And it's so funny too, because when I started my business, ChatGPT was not mainstream. And I
Hmm.
started it around, I'm going to help people learn how to build relationships and add value and sell a business model. And people didn't want what I was selling at the
Yeah,
beginning because
yeah,
they just thought the relationship piece was like a soft
unnecessary.
skill.
Mm.
Yeah, but now all of a sudden AI is everywhere. People are inundated, and whoever can get to the human connection first, that's who's going to win. So things are shifting. And I think what I really feel inspired about you too is you're such a thought leader in a lot of these spaces because you built Under Canvas to a point where you could sell it for $100 million. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that number. And those are big dollars to talk about. And so when you're thinking about you having no sales background, finding authentic connection points, pulling from your passion, and then being able to build what you've built and continue to build, like that is fascinating. So I would love to learn. Listen, I want to dive into the book a little bit more because the book was just so cool. There were so many like really, really tactical pieces to it. But I think one of the things that stood out was it's about communicating your value,
Mm.
and that there's a lot of different layers to that. But I want to understand from you, like when you're thinking about building a compelling pitch or a compelling delivery, What do you think is the most critical element that's needed for that to be a successful recipe?
Well, one of the reasons I ended up writing my book, which is called Thinking Bigger, a pitch deck formula for women who want to change the world, because I'm a woman who wants to change the world. Um, one of the things I realized was we often find a disconnect between what we want to sell and what people want to buy. And you just mentioned it
Yeah,
yourself.
my example. Yep.
Like your example is a really, really good example. Nobody realized that they needed to improve their human interaction experience. Um, and often I wrote the book because when I transitioned away from working full time as CEO at Under Canvas and transitioned to running our own small venture fund, I realized I was getting a lot of pitches. I was being pitched all the time. And it was new for me to be on the end of sort of the incessant pitch cycle. But what I realized was that most people did not understand the rules of the game. Like, didn't understand what I was looking for as an investor. And because I care, I started telling women, if you just repositioned this like this, or we worked on the pitch together and we realized, you're not quite thinking about the business in the right way for attracting investment. And what I realized was there were hundreds of thousands of amazing businesses that were coming across my desk, but most of them were not positioning themselves in a way that was attractive to me, the investor. And largely that was because they didn't know the rules by which investors play. Like there's a rule book, there's a kind of a common set of math, probabilities and specific things that investors look for to even consider something that might be investable. And so I ended up writing the book because I wanted to break down those barriers around understanding what the rules were. Because I firmly believe if you know them, you can play by them or you can break them. You can make your own rules. And then that's up to you how you navigate the landscape. And so I think one of the critical components is understanding your audience, understanding what they care about. I mean, it seems obvious and simple, right? But understanding what makes them tick, why they do what they do, why they buy the way they buy, why they invest the way they invest, what are the metrics that they're looking for. Because if we can't carve something up in a language that someone else can understand, it's just going to get lost and dismissed. It's like going into a supermarket and, in Japan and saying I need to buy hot dogs, and, maybe not American hot dogs in Japan. And just having a complete disconnect with I'm trying to buy this thing or sell this thing to this place, and there's no market for it, or it's not on the shelves. So we do that a lot when we're trying to pitch ourselves, trying to find, as we said, sort of common understanding, what someone else needs and is looking for, doing our homework up front without just pitching what we want to sell.
Everything you just laid out too, Sarah, is you're selling to the business model of the person you're trying to sell to. Like, how
Not
does this
your
product or
business model. Yes,
yes, and
exactly.
I think I totally agree with you. It's one of the biggest offenders I see in the work that I do is people don't ask any questions. They maybe do some surface level research and then they go into their presentation and they waste the hour or whatever the allotted time slot is product vomiting on someone who does it's not always relevant. And I think we don't take the time to research, we don't take the time to ask, and you literally wrote a rule book on it. So we'll make sure to definitely include the link to the book in the chat. I have read it. I got so much out of it. I think the other thing I really liked about the book was this concept of confidence. You have a quote in the book saying, if you aren't comfortable betting on yourself, it would be very hard to convince someone else to bet on you. And I
Yep.
think that translates to any role in the workforce. Like, can you
Yep.
dive into that a little bit more, like this confidence piece?
Yeah, it came about because I was hearing lots of pitches from women in particular who were asking me to invest in their business who had no skin in the game. Like, it was like, I want you to be my safety net. I want you to make it possible for me to take a leap of faith because you have underwritten it. And I was like, that's not really how this works. It's like, you have to really believe in this thing. You have to have a ton of skin in the game. You have to like really like, you're all in. Like, I really believe in this thing in order to convince someone else that, oh, I might join you. You're all in, I'll come and join you because, you're telling me the water's great. The hard part is if we don't know the water's great because we haven't tasted it, we haven't boiled it, we haven't done anything to it, and we're saying, I think the water's great.
Yeah.
I don't, I think it is, and I want your money, you to come in for us to take the test that says, let's drink this water and check that it's not poisonous. Like, I really need you to know the water's not poisonous. In fact, it's crystal clear, sparkling mountain water that is purer than pure. And you've been drinking it, your kids have been drinking it, your mother-in-law's been drinking it, your worst enemy's been drinking it, your best friend's been drinking it, and everybody loves it. And then there's a hope, right, of getting someone else to the table. In whether you're selling something, whether you're pitching something, whether that's for business or for an investment, whatever it is, you have to be all in. And I think, this comes back to authenticity, is like, there's I'm all in I'm really all in. And then there's a whole nother layer of I'm so all in, I've got so much skin into this. I'm like, we're so deep into this. And one of the interesting things for me has been sort of coming back to the entrepreneurial table, now building another travel company, is I still have to have skin back in the game. I can't rely on, oh, I had skin previously, and because I've had skin previously now, you should still trust me. That doesn't work
That's
either.
fascinating because it's like you went from being the seller, bootstrapping your business, to then raising the funds. Now you're a venture capitalist on the reverse side, receiving the pitches, and then back to being the pitchy.
Yeah,
And I just
exactly.
think it's so interesting too. I want to double click on this concept of betting on yourself and tasting the water and having skin in the game. I think where I see this come across as not confident or maybe ill-placed confidence, which translates to ego or arrogance. When people don't walk the talk, people can smell that from a mile away. And so I love it, and then it's inauthentic. So I think that the example you just shared is so spot on because people can tell. And then
Yes.
again, people don't want to work with people who are selling snake oil or too afraid to try their own water. So I love that example. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is the pitch deck formula, because I think this could translate to any type of presentation. No matter what, you have to be mindful of the person receiving your pitch or your presentation. So I would love to learn from you a little bit about if someone's going to put together this deliverable, why is this so important to get it right?
You only get one shot usually, right? So your first impression is your shot. And it's very rare that we get a second chance. And so doing everything it's not impossible, obviously, but like our first impressions matter. Like how we show up the first time, how we present. It'd be unusual to get someone like me on the other side of the table that says, oh, you know what, if you did this to your pitch, it would be a whole lot better. And if we tweaked it and you worked on it like this, that's very unusual, right?
Come
That's
back
not
in a month and do it again.
do
I'll give
it
you another
again.
hour.
Yeah. 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 Unheard of.
Yeah.
So, time, your shot, your opportunity to show up is a, is a one-time deal. And we have to kind of think of it like that and have done everything we can to work on how we're going to present, what we're going to present, and the way we go about it. And I've definitely had numerous opportunities that have slipped through my fingers because I thought what I had was good enough, and it still missed the mark. And we can easily dismiss that of, well, we're going to get plenty of no's. We are going to get plenty of no's. I mean, that is the rule of life, right? But I think there are ways to improve our chances, and being really prepared and thoughtful and having other people like input on your pitch, your work, is really, really helpful. I think one of the dangers of working with many of us working with AI right now is we can use AI as our checker, as our tester. And AI has a really great habit of telling us what we want to hear.
Doing great, Sarah.
Is an
You're
amazing
brilliant.
cheerleader. Yeah. It loves to, I don't know why it does this, but it really loves to puff us up. I have some theories on that, but we won't go into them right now.
Yeah.
But I think we still need real people, feedback, input, advice before we push something out, and that we take that critique and criticism to heart and action it, because otherwise we can live in our own bubble very easily, and we can live in our own AI bubble very easily too.
That's such a
We
great
create
point.
we create our own echo chamber.
There's so many nuances. One of my clients shared with me, he went to a doctor's appointment recently. The doctor came in and he had an assistant with him. And he said, "This is my scribe and we're going to use the note taker." And my client says, "Why do you
Why
need
both?
a human and the note taker?" And he goes, "There are so many nuances that we miss." And he gave an example of, they might ask the patient, "Hey, do you eat healthy?" And the patient says yes, and his wife's behind him shaking her head
Oh,
no.
no.
Like all of the human nuances. And so I love that example of, even if you're practicing in front of your friends, you can see when they make a little grimace. You can see when they're dozing off. So I love that. We need to be able to practice and role play to prepare for our one shot that we get.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Do you find on the receiving end of the pitches, how often did someone do any type of like pre-work ahead of time? So they almost primed the pitch ahead of time. Do you find the pitch sometimes starts before the meeting happens?
Yeah, I mean, you're much more like, I mean, sadly, you're much more likely to get the meeting, right? If the wheel is primed already. I mean, in the venture capital space, we talk about this as the human bias issue problem, in that, people who know people are more likely to get the business than people who don't know people, right?
Right.
And that's particularly true when it comes to capital investments, when you've got relationships. So I have found, sadly, and I hate this is reality, but it is reality. I have much more of a likelihood of getting in the room if someone else has made an introduction for me, if someone else has been the connector. And you and I were just talking about this before we press record. The possibilities of me making an advancement somehow are so much stronger if someone else is vouching for me than if I'm
Yes.
just pitching myself cold. And those things are hard to find. Like those, like getting people to like vouch for you and like open doors for you or make introductions for you is not transactional. It's relational.
Yes.
And so like I think as women in particular, which is weird because women are so much more relational than men, but we haven't learned the business rule book, which is that relationships are so critical for us doing business with men and women, not just women and women,
Yes.
but men and women. And having and being a voucher for someone else and allowing someone else to vouch for you and introduce you and put you in rooms that you aren't normally in is a very critical component of winning anything. And I think we're going to see that that is even more true in the age of AI, because I was listening to something the other day that was saying, college graduates are now sending off 500 job applications, and AI is filtering 500 job applications. And the reality is the ones that had some human connection somewhere in the train, much more likely to make it through the filter than an AI tool scraping your resume to see whether you may have what it takes.
What filter to kick you out and disqualify you? Because they're
Yeah,
looking to disqualify.
they're
And
looking to
your point,
disqualify. Yeah.
your point on the relationship piece, this is, I call it ABAV, always be adding value. If you're always adding value to others and being a
Yeah.
connector of others, and there's so many ways to do this for free. And I think that's what
Yep.
really, my little hill I'm going to die on is, it takes no money to leave a positive review on a hotel or Sarah's book. I left a wonderful review on her book because I loved it. It took me a minute. It didn't take long. And there's just so many ways to fill the bank account because a lot of times people pull from an empty bank, and that's where you can actually like, hurt and damage the relationship. But
Yep.
it is a little bit of a delicate balance. And I struggle with this too sometimes where I give and I give,
Mm.
and I should totally be okay to ask for the favor in return, but
Yeah.
sometimes I hesitate. And I've been challenging myself a little bit more to start asking for things more
Yeah.
proactively, and I'm getting wonderful responses. So
Well,
it's
of course you
it
are, because you have relationships. So you
yes,
can't do the asking when you have nothing in the bank, but that's
right,
why you put things in the bank in the first place, right? And
right,
I think sometimes that's what we forget about the whole cycle. It's not, we don't do things because they're transactional, but because we're building relationships with people, and we're having genuine real interactions with people, and we get to know people over, in various different ways, that then, it's like, it is like coins in the piggy bank, that, you know some point in time you're going to remember, like, oh, this person would be perfect for this,
yeah,
because you're in a room and someone's looking for something, and you'll go out of your Rolodex, well, I know the person for that. And the
right.
reality is, you might be that for someone else. And then being able to say to your network and the people that are in your orbit, do you know anyone who could help me do X? That's really the value of networks and relationships. And I think for our college grads coming out of school, like, you know, our young people understanding that our relationships are our value,
Yes.
and how we start building, putting, pennies in the bank account is pretty critical for actually being able to make things happen.
I like that. And it's funny because we're talking about not being transactional, but we're using an analogy that is transactional. But what I like about this, because I have a lot of male clients, I have a lot of male podcast listeners, and one of them, year one of my business, called me and he said, in the past, I would have this wallop and I wouldn't even talk to someone unless they gave me a purchase order. And
Mm-hmm.
then I shifted the thinking after we chatted through it. And he said, this woman mentioned she's going on vacation. And he's like, I heard your voice in my head. And I said, where are you going on vacation? And for 20 minutes, we shoot the bull about her trip. And I get back to my office, and she had a project for me in my inbox. She wanted me to present to her team of 12. He's like, I couldn't believe how easy it was. But he told me he liked the language because then the time he was spending on this chit
It
chat
feels like a
wasn't
waste of time.
wasted. Yes, and so I just want to clarify that. And Sarah had brought this up before we hit record. It's just karma too. And what I've
Yeah.
found, I've always been able to get to the decision maker in any role I had because I realized whoever built that business had to go knock on doors themselves and had to
Yes.
get help themselves. So
Yes.
sometimes the top dog is actually the more approachable person than some of the gatekeepers or the
Yep.
people below him or her because they did the same thing. And so I
Yep.
think that has really helped shift the mindset. And even meeting someone as like established and just so well known, and you're like a little celebrity to me in this industry, but I knew I could reach out to you and you would say yes because I knew you've had to do it before. And I think
100%.
that's what is really cool about shifting that confidence and having conversations like this. I think it's really going to change the game for people.
Yeah. And the reality is, what's the worst that can happen if you make an ask, right? Someone can say no, and you go, okay.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the other piece though is if you make the ask and they say yes, got to jump on it fast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. 100%.
Do you have, there's just so much we could talk about, and I'm so much enjoying this conversation. If you wanted them to hear one thing from you today, like walking away with one or two really big takeaways from what you've learned in your journey, what would you share?
Such a big question.
No
Um,
pressure.
I mean, obviously, there are so many different ways to answer that. I think one of the things that's become very clear to me is that my values are very important to me. Things I care about are very important to me. And I have learned over the years now that aligning myself with being true to that and true to who I am, and aligning myself to other people who care about things. They don't have to necessarily care about the same things I care about, but people people who have values, people that are my people, people that, and so I think we are all of us trying to constantly find our path, right? We're constantly trying to navigate our way through complexity that we don't even necessarily understand. I have found when I am true to who I am and I am not trying to just play a game, like I am my best self and my happiest self, and I'm leaning into finding my own pathways, like understanding the path where the real world pathways exist, and then realizing where I'm going to step on the path and where I'm going to forge a new path, and who I'm going to take with me or who I'm going to ask to help go in that direction with me, has been one of the most sort of guiding principles of my life. And recognizing how important my own values are, who I want to do business with, who I don't want to do business with. That's also, like, we call that our North Star and our South Star, right? Our South
Oh,
Stars
I love that.
can be as valuable to us as our North Stars. Our North Stars are our values and things we care about. Our South Stars are all the things we don't want, all the things that we don't like. And then we use them to guide us. We use them to, like, help us find where our foot goes next. And those things we realize, I have no asshole policy now, right? I don't want to do business with people who I consider to be an asshole.
Oh,
I just
asshole
don't.
policy. I love it.
I don't want to waste my time or my. I have a finite amount of energy, a finite amount
Yeah.
of resources, and a finite amount of time. And so I just don't want to. I don't want to waste any of it. And so trying to figure out, like, are you my people or not my people? Pretty quick, it has become a very clear guiding principle for me. And sometimes that can be hard because you think, oh, that asshole over there, that's my language, but, like,
Yeah, I like it.
has all the resources that I want. And then I have to go, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that little nugget over there is not going to create any form of happiness or joy or desire in the work I'm doing for me. And whilst the end might justify the means, it's not going to work out well. And so let's just be very clear about that from the beginning. We're not aligned. We don't see the world in quite the same way. Okay, let's use that as my South Star, and those kind of things help guide me as to to put my feet, because I think that's the journey we're all trying to do all of the time, is figure out our path and figure out where do I land and how do I take the next step and where am I going and how am I going to get there. And those two things have been very strong guiding principles for me.
I love that. And values are a big part of my curriculum too, because I have found if you understand your values, then you have a deeper connection with yourself, which then allows you to show up authentically, which then allows you to show up confidently. And I think the confidence piece is what people struggle with in sales and selling internally and trying to get promotion. So I think that having you narrate it that clearly with the North Star and South Star analogy, I love the South Star because knowing what you don't want can almost be an easier line in
It's
the
easy.
sand. Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't align with my values. The answer is no. And we see this all the time. There might be clients, even if you're in a B2B role or a B2C role where
You're
the
not
red
my
flags are
people.
there,
You're
walk
not my
away.
clients. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's not waste time. Let's not waste time and money on something that's not a good fit. And I think sometimes we want to make everything a fit. I've fallen into this camp. You feel like the opportunities are not as many as you would like. So you're trying to make everything fit and everything work, and it doesn't work.
You're going to and every yes you say yes to is a no to something else. And so if
Yeah.
you say no to something that's not a fit, you might open the door for the good karma to come back because someone's going to do an intro for you because of all of your value add throughout your relationship. And I am so happy to hear some of what you're saying because it means I'm on the right track.
You're
A
on the
lot of
right path.
yeah, a lot of the episodes in the past of the show are speaking to the same thing. You're just giving us action and reality and how you can really take these things Sarah is sharing with us and we can take them and really build something meaningful, whether we work for someone else, whether we're self-employed, whether we're raising capital. These messages translate everywhere. So the book is called Thinking Bigger, a pitch deck formula for women who want to change the world. Before we wrap, I want to ask Sarah about her Few and Far property. If anyone is interested in traveling to Africa, I just listened to a webinar about it. I've learned so much. So tell us a little bit about the lodge and then where people can visit and connect with you.
Yeah. We are doing large-scale conservation work in South Africa, trying to preserve and protect 100,000 hectares of the Sopensberg Mountains. And we've built an extraordinary little lodge called Few and Far Luvhondo. And I'm sure Sarah will put that in the note links. But yeah, we are creating experiences for people to experience nature, experience the wilderness, and have an extraordinary time, and at the same time helping preserve and protect an incredible ecosystem that will be lost if we don't protect it. So that is the work I'm doing now on a day-to-day basis. We're doing more travel. I love travel. So we're doing more hospitality, outdoor hospitality work, and doing large-scale conservation work at the same time.
I love it. It's on my list to visit May 2027. I've got it on the calendar. I know I'm so excited to have a reason to go to Africa. I am so inspired by you as always. Thank you so much for being a guest on Prospecting on Purpose. Where can people connect with you if they want to learn more or come visit the property?
Yeah, I have my own website, sarahhdusek.com, so you can connect with me directly there, or you can find Few and Far Luvhondo at fewandfarluvhondo.com.
Awesome. I'll link everything in the show notes. Sarah, thank you so much for lending your time and expertise to our audience.
My pleasure.